Hey y'all, welcome to part 5 of the Vectric version 12 Plus for Absolute Beginners video series. In this video, we're going to focus on importing vector files. Specifically, we'll get into SVG and Dxf files. Now, although I'm demonstrating using VCarve Pro version 12.009, this works exactly the same way in Cut 2D, Desktop and Pro, VCarve, Desktop and Pro, and Aspire. So the SVG file has become the more popular file exchange format lately, but that increase in popularity has come with its share of problems, and we'll get into some of those problems in a few minutes. But for right now, what we're going to focus on is importing the vector files into your Vectric software. Now, being a Windows-based program, that means there are several ways of doing the same thing. The first way would be to come up to the File menu, click on the File menu, and come down to Import. And here we have Import Vectors or a bitmap. The other way is to come straight up here under File Operations to this icon right here. Import a bitmap or vectors from a file into a current job. Let's go ahead and do this. So I'll click on that. And I want to import my logo right here. I'll select it and click Open. And that imports the SVG file down into this lower left corner. You'll notice that when the vectors were imported, they were all selected. We can now go ahead and position them within our material out here. So I'm going to come over here under my Align Objects, and I'm going to align it with the center of my material. And we'll click that icon, and we move into the center. Now I can resize these vectors, or if I don't need to do that, I can carry on with the design of the rest of my project. While they are selected, however, I want to make sure that these are all closed vectors and the right size. So what I'll do first off is come off of the vectors over here, right click, and then down in this context menu, go to Select, then come down to Vectors, select all open vectors. And it deselects the vectors, and I get the prompt, no open vectors in design. Terrific. That's exactly what we want. Now, if I want to resize my vectors, I can go ahead and select them all, then click on any of these vectors, and I get into Move and Transform mode. Here, I can hold down the Shift key and come up to one of these corners, not the black dot, the white diamond. Holding down Shift, I can click and hold my left mouse button and drag it a little bit bigger. That looks good. Or, if I have a specific size in mind, I can just select all the vectors and come up here under Transform Objects to the second icon, Set Selected Object Size. Click that icon, and I can enter a width in X or a height in Z to resize this set of vectors. If I have Link XY checked, that keeps the proportions that it's currently in. If I uncheck this and enter a size in my width, for example, only the width will change. The height will stay the same. Conversely, if I change the height, it will change and the width will stay the same. As long as I have Link XY checked, I can come here and enter a different width in X, for example, and it changes my height in Y at the same time. I'll click Apply, and it makes that change. Then I can close it. Because there are no open vectors, I'm now ready to move on to toolpathing, should I want to toolpath this logo. That's pretty straightforward. This is an SVG file that was created for CNC routing. I mentioned earlier that there were several problems associated with SVG files. That is, not all SVG files are created for CNC routing. Some SVG files are created for 3D printing, and there are fewer problems with those. But other SVG files were created for graphics programs to be used for online graphics. I'll give you a demonstration of what I mean right now by looking at another project that I did a couple of years ago. At first glance, this SVG file looks like it would be perfect to use for this project. Nice, clean outlines, and although there are a lot of colors out here, this should be fairly easy to import into VCarve or Aspire. But when we do import that SVG file, this is what we end up getting. I'll turn on the SVG, and I'll turn off this bitmap layer, and now we see the vectors that are imported from this SVG file. This is absolutely unusable. The problem is the SVG file was created for computer graphics. It was not created for CNC routing. I can demonstrate this by coming into Affinity Designer, and here is that SVG file. It looks perfectly fine until we start looking over here in the layers, and we can see how many layers make up this pirate file. We also see that the sizes are not exactly correct. Let's take a look at this vector area right here. This is the bottom half of his bandana. If we zoom in, this is the vector or path that's used in the graphics software, and we see how big that is. The layer over here is showing that full-size path. If we look up here, we can see that the fill that's used in this path is this color. The fact that this sits below this layer, his chest, this layer, his head, means that this layer is sitting on top of this one, which is sitting on top of this one. So these two layers here are covering this portion of this path, of these vectors. With this layer and this layer covering this part of this layer, we don't see it in the finished product. So this SVG file was never made for CNC routing. It was made for vector graphics for use on a website or something of that nature. This is a common issue. I get questions about this type of SVG file on a regular basis. And I'm sorry to say, this is just unusable. Here we can see this path, this file, or this vector set from the SVG as I just demonstrated in Affinity Designer. And then this vector over the top of it, then this vector over the top of that. My point in all of this is, not all SVG files are made for CNC routing. Some of these SVG files are made for other purposes, and we can't use them. These vectors are completely unusable for our purposes. So what I had to do when I created this pirate is I just turned off those vectors. I exported the SVG file as a PNG file after merging all of these layers together. There was no other way of getting around this. Then I did a bitmap trace, and the bitmap trace is what gave me the vectors that I could actually work with. Just something to watch out for. Now, we also have a Dxf file. And Dxf files, while they are an older file format, they were for many years the format of choice for exchanging drawings. Dxf files are usually used in CAD programs that will allow someone who uses AutoCAD, for example, to exchange a drawing with someone who uses NanoCAD, for example. You can draw up a CAD drawing in AutoCAD, export it as a Dxf file, and then send it to the NanoCAD user, and they can open that design. Dxf actually stands for Drawing Exchange Format, and it was the default used for many, many years that allowed CNCers to exchange files and send drawings back and forth to one another. I could draw something up in VCarve and send those vectors to somebody using another CAD/CAM package. And while they wouldn't get my toolpath information, if you're using Fusion 360, you would at least get the drawing and those vectors. And that still works, but the popularity of SVG files has overshadowed Dxf files, especially within the last 5 to 6 years. Importing Dxf files works pretty much the same way. We can go up here to import a bitmap or vectors and click on that icon, and I have an 8-ball. We'll go ahead and import. So I'll select that 8-ball and click open, and I don't see anything. Well, if this happens to you, just zoom out. And let's see, there it is, way over there, and it's huge. This is one of the issues you'll find with Dxf files. In that, Dxf files, the units of measure are not saved, but the location in the drawing is saved. What I mean by that is, when this was drawn in the CAD program, their origin point, their XY0, was down over here, and they drew it in a clear space over here. Usually, we're talking about something like this, where you have your origin down in this corner, and the drawing is done right here. The Dxf file remembers this location. So, for our purposes, we'll again have to align it with our material. Then we'll have to resize it. So, with it being imported with all the vectors selected, I can come over here and align it to the center of my material. come over here to zoom view to the selected object, click that icon, and that centers it up in our screen. Now, earlier I said that the Dxf file does not save the unit of measure. We don't know if this was drawn in imperial or metric, and the program doesn't care. Let's go over here and take a look at what size it is by going into Set Selected Object Size with all of the vectors selected. We can click on that, and we can see this is 40.0894 inches, which is pretty big. Odds are this was drawn in metric. If it were super tiny, it was probably drawn in imperial, and you'll want to convert to your unit of measure. And Vectric has made that very easy. You can just come over here, again making sure link XY is checked, and click in the box. Either one is fine, either width in X or height in Y. And I want to put my cursor to the right of the last number within that box. Then I'll hold down Shift and enter the asterisk, which is Shift the number 8. Then I'll type the letter I, and then tap the equals button. What I've just done is I've told Vectric I want to convert that 40 that was here from millimeters to inches. Then I can click Apply, and that has brought that way down. So that 40 millimeter was a little larger than 1.5 inches. Now, I'm going to zoom back out, and I'm going to Control Z to undo that. That's one way of scaling metric to imperial. If this was real tiny, I could asterisk M to convert to metric. Sometimes that comes in handy if you need something to be a specific size. In our case, it's not really that necessary. I can make this any size I want. I have a 12-inch square piece of material. I'll just make this 10 inches in diameter. And click Apply. And that's more suitable for what I want to do. Now again, we want to right-click, select Vectors, all open vectors, no open vectors in design. So we are set. We're ready to use these vectors to VCarve or whatever we're going to do. This is not always the case, however. When it comes to circular vectors, more often than not, they are closed vectors, but anything other than a circular vector can sometimes be broken up into different line segments. Let me import another Dxf file, and I'll show you what I mean. So we'll go over here to Import Bitmap or Vectors. We'll click that icon, and I'm going to import my 8-inch corner clamps. Select it, click Open, and they imported right into the center of my material. Version 12 gives us a little bit of a indication here that we have open vectors. We see these black dots here. This is telling me that we have a start point here, a start point here, and a start point here. These are open vectors. This is very common when importing Dxf files. So I click off, and to confirm that, I'll right-click, select, Vectors, all open. And we see the only thing that is not an open vector are these two circles. So let me click off again, and let's just kind of click here and take a look. I can see here that that's one vector, that's one vector, and that's one vector. So I have 3 open vectors here. And we select over here, and yeah, we've got 2 open vectors here. Well, before we can cut this out, we'll need to close these vectors. So what I'll do is I'll select all these, then select that, then come over here under Edit Objects to the bottom row all the way to the left, Join Open Vectors. I'll click on that icon. Starting up at the top, I can see I've got 3 open vectors. After joining, I'll have 1 closed vector. That's what I want. So I'll click Join. And now, if I select the vector, I don't have any black dots out here. And I can see I have 1 closed vector. So I can select these vectors here, and before joining, I have 2 open vectors. After joining, I'll have 1 closed vector. Click Join. Then I can close this, and I have 2 closed vectors. So we'll go ahead and end this video right here. And hopefully I've given you an overview as to what to look for when you're talking about either an SVG file or a Dxf file, some of the things to watch out for, and some of the questions to ask before you purchase an SVG file. If you find something on a site like Etsy that you absolutely love, it's okay to message the seller and ask them, was this SVG file created for online computer graphics, or was it created for 3D printing, or was it created for laser or CNC work? If it was created for laser or CNC work, you can probably use it with your CNC router. So I hope you got something out of this video. And if you did, I do hope you'll give it a thumbs up. Now I know there's no way I answered every question you may have about SVG files, Dxf files, or how to import them into your Vectric project. So this afternoon at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, I'll be hosting a live Q&A session where you can ask me any question you'd like about anything I have presented in this video. Again, that's today at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on my YouTube channel. And I've put a link to that live Q&A session down in the description box of this video. Before we wrap this up, I'd like to give a major shout out and say a special thank you to all of my channel members. Thank you very much, channel members, for your continued support. If you would like information on how to become a channel member, just click that little join button down below this video panel. A panel will pop up and a video will play that'll tell you all about channel membership. So, I hope to see everybody this afternoon for a live Q&A session. And as always, whether you subscribe to my channel or not, whether you become a channel member or not, I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to watch, and y'all take care.